Wanted to talk a little bit about how to deal with families when we have either a death or a very kind of serious critical patient that we have to deal with. When I first was going through EMT school, my EMS instructor said never ever tell them they're going to be okay, because you just don't know that. And that is one of the principles. We don't want to give false assurances to our patients. And if we don't know something, we don't want to speculate and just make a guess. We want to tell them the truth. But he had said that, and I was going to do that, so I followed that. And I had this kid that he was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. He'd fallen off his bike, his arm was broken, he was holding it, we were splinting it, and of course he's hurting and he's crying, and his mom's there, and he's like, am I going to be okay? What's going to happen? He didn't know and all that. So I looked at him, and remembering what I was told, I looked at him and said, well, I can't guarantee you're going to be okay. And, but we're going to take you to the hospital and we'll see. But there's no guarantees. And that was probably the wrong thing, especially once he burst into tears. He started screaming and yelling. His mom wanted to know what was wrong. And I realized very quickly that occasionally it is okay to say, you know what, I think you're going to be okay. We'll take you to the hospital. We'll get you checked out. You'll probably get a cool cast. And that's what I would have expected for that child to get. That's probably what I should have said. So that was not one of my better moves. But when we're dealing with the family, there's several things we do want to try. One of the things we need to do is always maintain dignity. So if the patient has passed away, and we have to always think a little bit about crime scene evidence protection. But if it's not a crime scene, if there's something we can do to try to make the body look a little more presentable, maybe wipe the face if they vomited, or put a sheet over them. If this is out in a public place, definitely put a sheet over them, like a car wreck, cover them up, protect their dignity, try to keep people back. By all means, do not get your phones out and be taking pictures of anything when there is a dead body. That's just a terrible thing to do. Remember that hearing is one of the last things that seems to go with patients. So no matter how far gone you may think they may be, always say nice things, positive things. Don't say anything negative. Try to reassure the patient, and even if you think they're out, you can still talk to them and tell them and explain to them what's going on and what you're doing. And they may not be able to open their eyes or vocalize it, but they might still hear that, and that can be a great comfort to them. So make sure you're talking to your patients. I know it seems sometimes a little silly to be talking during a full arrest or when somebody you think is very critical and about to die, but we do want to go ahead and say good things and explain things to the patient as we're doing it. When talking with the family, especially for a very critical patient, you want to communicate. So tell them what you're doing, explain to them some things. Obviously, we may not be able to take a whole lot of time to do this, but try to give them some very short snippets and explain what's going on, what's going to happen, what hospital you want to go to. Remember, it's always their decision, but if they don't care, or if there's a specific hospital that you need to go to for their condition, explain that to them. And provide what reassurances you can. I typically say something like, the patient's very critical, we are doing all that we can for the patient, and we're going to take them to the hospital where they're going to take great care of them. So I never say anything real negative if I can avoid it. But again, I have to remember the false reassurances. So if we're doing CPR on a patient, I don't tell the family, like, just, at the hospital, you'll be able to talk to him then, because I don't think he's going to live. So I don't say that, don't give the false reassurances. So if we're doing CPR on a patient, it's always very critical. We're doing everything we can. Our rhythm is showing this. We're going to try to fix it, and we're taking them to the hospital where they're going to take great care of them. So just, again, no false reassurances, but communicate everything you're doing with the patient. Explain to the family, tell them where you're going, answer their questions to the best of your ability. Now, sometimes the families are going to, families may express themselves in ways that you're not fully expecting. They may scream, they may cry, they may faint. As long as they're not interfering with patient care, or they're not threatening you. Like sometimes I've had them get so upset they're pushing me or grabbing me and shaking me, and I have to take care of the patient, so I can't let them do that. But short of interfering with patient care or threatening you, let them express themselves. If crying, screaming, yelling helps them, then that's what they need to do. If it is a very critical patient, a lot of times giving them one more moment before we load them in the ambulance, or we take them to the ambulance, to hold their hand, to kiss them on the forehead, to say something to them, is real important to them. So if at all possible, try to let them have that moment before you move them to the ambulance and to take them to the hospital, because after the hospital, they may not have that, and if it's not a good outcome and the patient dies, that may be the what they felt was the last moment they had to say anything to their loved one. So try to give them that if you can. When talking with the family, try to use a relatively soft, controlled, kind tone of voice. Don't shout, don't yell, don't get angry with them. They're going through a terrible time and they may be very confused, very upset, in anger, in denial, whatever stage they're in. Remember, they're upset about the incident, so try to stay calm, speak nicely, professionally. Sometimes even touching them on the arm or the shoulder, using some of your haptics is appropriate. But just remain professional, stay calm. If it is a case where we're not going to resuscitate them, they're a DOA, and the family wants to see the body or touch the body, hold their hand, pet their head, whatever. Again, you have to think a little bit about crime scene, but if you're not worried about destroying or disturbing any evidence, by all means, let them go in and hold them, hug them, touch them, especially if it's a child. Let them pick them up and hold them. That can be real important to them. So let them go ahead and do that. Now, most people have not gone through a family member dying outside of a hospital or dying at home, and they just don't know what to do. It's not something we experience every day. So let them know kind of what the process is, that a lot of times the coroner's going to have to be called in, the police are going to be there, someone is going to remain with them. Offer to call other family or clergy or someone that they may want there to help them, comfort them. So if there's someone that they can call, or that you can call for them and have them come, but just kind of give them a heads up of what's going to happen. And generally, at least in our area, the police will stay on scene with them, and then the coroner will arrive as soon as they can get there, and they'll handle things from there. So you can kind of just explain that to them. If it's a home health or hospice situation, the hospice nurse oftentimes will have to become called in. So if you have a DNR hospice situation, you were called first, they weren't sure what to do, that happens. You get there ahead of hospice, just let them know that hospice is going to be coming. And typically when hospice is on their way, we don't need to call for the coroner. But again, a lot of times we leave the scene, we let the police stay, and they handle it until either the coroner or hospice gets there. So these are just a few little things that we can do when we're dealing with either a family that has lost a loved one or has a very critical, sick loved one, and trying to deal with the family. It's a hard thing to do. In EMT classes, we learn the skills, we focus on the skills, we can do those things great, and sometimes talking and communicating with family is a little uncomfortable for us. We know they're feeling terrible grief and anger, and it's a terrible situation for them, and we're worried that we're going to say something that's wrong or maybe make things worse. And most of the time, you're not going to do that as long as you tell them that everything is being done, everything has been done, we're doing the best that we can, and we're going to provide the best care that we can. Again, no false reassurances, but let them know we're going to take care of them and handle things the best we can. And it's tough, I know. So hopefully this helps you a little bit with this section of your book, and will help you prepare for your next test.